The brilliant Hungarian-born physicist and mathematician John von Neumann once calculated that over the course of the average human lifetime, the brain stores something on the order of 2.8 times 10 to the power of 20 bits of information, which is 280 followed by 18 zeros. This is a staggering amount of information, and brain researchers have long struggled to come up with a mechanism that explains such a vast capability. Interestingly, holograms also possess a fantastic capacity for information storage. By changing the angle at which the two lasers strike a piece of photographic film, it is possible to record many different images on the same surface. Any image thus recorded can be retrieved simply by illuminating the film with a laser beam possessing the same angle as the original two beams. By employing this method, researchers have calculated that 1 inch square of film can store the same amount of information that is contained in 50 Bibles. For Pribram, many similarities between brains and holograms were tantalizing, but he knew his theory didn't mean anything unless it was backed up by more solid evidence. One researcher who provided such evidence was Indiana University biologist Paul Piech. Piech began as a disbeliever in Pribram's theory. He was especially skeptical of Pribram's claim that memories do not possess any specific location in the brain. And to prove Pribram wrong, Piech devised a series of experiments, and for the test subjects of his experiments, he chose salamanders. In previous studies, he had discovered that he could remove the brain of a salamander without killing it, and although it remained in a stupor while its brain was missing, its behavior completely returned to normal as soon as its brain was restored. Piech reasoned that if a salamander's feeding behavior is not confined to any specific location in the brain, then it should not matter how its brain is positioned in its head. If it did matter, Pribram's theory would be disproven. He then swooped over the left and right hemispheres of a salamander's brain, but to his dismay, as soon as it recovered, the salamander quickly resumed normal feeding. He took another salamander and turned its brain upside down. When the salamander recovered, it fed normally again. Growing increasingly frustrated, he decided to resort to more drastic measures. In a series of over 700 operations, he sliced, flipped, shuffled, soup-traced, and even minced the brains of his hapless subjects, but always when he replaced what was left of their brains, their behavior returned to normal. These findings and others turned Piech into a believer. He writes about his experience, as well as giving detailed accounts of his experiments in his insightful book, Shuffle Brain. A number of tantalizing findings in physics suggest that the holographic idea may be correct. Even disregarding the implicate sea of energy, space is filled with light and other electromagnetic waves that constantly crisscross and interfere with one another. As we have seen, all particles are also waves. This means that the physical objects and everything else we perceive in reality are composed of interference patterns, a fact that has undeniable holographic implications. These non-local connections of all atoms is another supportive factor that the universe is holographic. This would imply that any changes that we make in our minds, in our perception of reality, must therefore be reflected in our surroundings. Derry Lanka once said, "Whatever your belief, the universe will support and validate that belief by attracting the circumstances, situations, opportunities and people into your life that will reinforce that version of reality." According to Craig Hogan, a physicist at the Fermilab Particle Physics Lab, GEO 600 detector has stumbled upon the fundamental limit of spacetime, the point where spacetime stops behaving like the smooth continuum Einstein described, and instead it dissolves into grains, just as a newspaper photograph dissolves into dots as you zoom in. After this discovery, Hogan said, "If the GEO 600 result is what I suspect it is, then we are all living in a giant cosmic hologram." And now we have come to the end, so let me summarize everything I showed you, and mainly the implication of this. We definitely need to reconsider our perception of reality, and realize that we are all wonderful beings possessing this power that can modify our perception of reality in any way we wish. So what are the practical implications of this material I presented here for us? The bottom line implications are: We are not disempowered beings, having no control over our lives and reality. We can change our perception of reality through mastering our minds, which means having control over our emotions and intentions, as these speak the language that communicates with our reality. Most diseases come from the fact that we are not aware about the basic laws of love and fear polarities. And this is a simple biological fact, because when we fear, the body starts to release adrenaline, which impairs the immune system and logical thinking. Of course, this function is very important, for example, when we are in danger and we really need to run away from it. However, our situation nowadays is very different. The everyday stress of survival, and even worse, a stress that is completely unnecessarily triggered by the media, mostly showing only negativity like terrorist attacks, swine flu, the credit crunch and murderers. More and more diseases, junk and genetically modified food. Media mind control together with water fluoridation, which I have been researching for a long time, until it was recently banned in the EU. My anti-water fluoridation presentation was recorded, but when I asked for the video it suddenly disappeared. So all these things are turning humanity into cattle. And why did this happen? Because we had let others control us through our fears, without even realizing it. This is how this society works. Who would want empowered, loving people who do not fear anything? This controlled society would collapse straight away. All that we need to realize is that we are all wonderful and powerful beings, capable of making our reality into our perception. And when we learn to use this power, there will be no need for any external efforts to change these things. The change needs to come from within, so be the change you want to see in the world, like Mahatma Gandhi said. And I'll leave you with this